Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. In this tutorial series, we are displaying the list of posts that belong to a specific label in our Blogger website. So here we can see we are displaying 3 posts related to this AI label. In the previous video, I had shown you how to display these posts over here. Now in this video, we will create a design to make it look better. So this is how the design is going to look. We have these 3 posts over here. We have the title, we have a summary and this read more button, and also this thumbnail. And this is completely responsive. So if I decrease the width of the browser window, this is how it will look on smaller screens. So in this video, I'll show you how to design this using HTML and CSS. And in the next video, we will add all the content of the blog posts inside this design. And we will display this design into our Blogger website. So let's get started. Right here, I have created this folder called label posts, and I just opened it with VS Code. And here I also have a folder called images, and in that we have these 3 images. We're going to use that in our design. So let's go ahead and create a new file, and let's call it index.html. And let's create one more file, and let's call it style.css. And let's start with the index.html file. So in VS Code, you can just press exclamation and press tab, and you'll have this basic HTML5 code. Right, let's link our CSS file over here. So I'll just type style.css in the href. And let's start with the markup over here. So the first thing we will do is we'll create a container division, and let's give it a class of label posts container. And in this division, we will have a separate division for each of these blog posts. So let's give it a class of label post. And in this, we need to have this thumbnail and all this text content. Now here we can see this thumbnail is actually a link. So we need to include the img tag inside an anchor tag. So let's create an anchor tag, and for now I'll just set the href to hash. And let's also give it a class so that we can style it in CSS. And let's give it a class of thumb container. And in this we'll create an img tag, and for the src let's type images / and I have this image called blog1.jpg. And the next thing we need to have are these text content. So for that, I'll just create a division with the class of text content. And in that we will have, first of all, we need to have the heading. So the heading is also a link. So I'll just create an anchor tag. And let's give it a class of post title container. And then we will have an s3. And let's give it a class of post title. And let's add the post title over here. And the next thing we need to have is the summary. So for that, let's create a division with the class of summary. And I'll just add some random text. I'll just type lorem and 20 and press tab. And here we can see it has generated some random text. And the next thing we need to have is this read more button. So for that, let's create an anchor tag, and let's give it a class of read more btn. And here let's type read more. Right, this is the first post. So I'll just copy this division from here, and I'll just paste it 2 more times. Right, now we have 3 posts, and let's open this in our browser and let's see how it looks. So here I have this extension called Live Server installed in VS Code. So once you install that, you can just right click over here in the HTML and click on Open with Live Server. And here we can see our design is displayed in the browser. Now let's go ahead and style this. So let's go back to our source code. And let's go to the style.css file. And first of all, let's target the images because we cannot see any other element because of the image. So I'll just type label posts container, label post, img. And let's set the height of the image to 180 pixels. And this is how it looks. We'll also set the object fit to cover so that it has the correct proportions. Right now, the next thing we will do is we will add a background color to the body. So let's tap body, and here let's tap background, and I'll just set the background color to EDF2F4. And we'll also bring these elements to the center. So I'll just type display of grid and place items to the center. And let's also set the font family to Roboto. So I'll just type font family, Roboto, and sans serif. Right, now let's style the individual posts. So let's type label post container, and for each of the individual posts we have this division with the class of label post. So let's type label post, And first of all, let's set the background color to white, and we'll set the display to flex. Now let's bring this text content to the center vertically. So here let's tap align items to the center, and now let's add a max width. So let's tap max width, and I'll just set it to 700 pixels. Now let's add some space between these posts. So here for the container division, which is label post container, let's type label post container, and let's set the display to flex, and we'll also set the flex direction to column, and let's set a gap of 24 pixels. And now we can see we have this gap between these posts. Right now let's add some box shadow. So for the label post, let's tap box shadow, and let's set the values to 0, 4 pixels, 40 pixels, negative 8 pixels, RGBA 0, 0, 0 and 0.3, and this is how it looks. Now the next thing we will do is we will set the width of the image to 1/3 of the width of the post. So for that, let's go back to our code, and let's target the image. And the image is actually inside this anchor tag, which has a class of thumb container. So let's go ahead and target that. So I'll just type label post container, thumb container, and for this we'll set the flex to 1. And for the text content, we will set a flex of 2. So let's target the text content. For that, we have this division with the class of text content. So here let's tap label post container, text content, and let's tap flex of 2. And now let's target the image, and here let's set the width to 100% of the parent. And now we can see 1/3 of the width is assigned to this image. Now here we can see for the image at the bottom we have a little bit of gap. So for that, let's go back, and here we can just tap display of flex, and now we can see that the gap is gone. Right now we need to have some gap between the image and this text content. So for that, let's go to the text content styles, and here let's add a padding. So let's tap padding, and let's set the padding to 16 pixels and 24 pixels, and now we can see we have this gap. Now let's go ahead and style this heading. So for the heading, we have this anchor tag with the class of post title container. So let's type label post container, post title container, and the first thing we will do is we will remove the underlines. So let's tap text decoration, and let's set it to none. And when we hover over this heading, we need to have the underline. So let's tap label post container, post title container, hover, and let's tap text decoration, underline. And now when we hover over this, we can see that we have this underline. Right now let's add some styles to the heading inside the anchor tag. So for the heading, we have this S3 with the class of post title. So let's tap label post container, post title, and here the first thing we will do is we'll set the margin to 0, and let's set the font size to 24 pixels, and let's add some margin to the bottom. So let's tap margin bottom, and I'll just set it to 8 pixels, and let's also change the color of the text. So I'll just tap color, and let's set the color to EF233C. Right now let's style this summary. So for the summary, we have this division with the class of summary. So let's type label post container, summary, and for the summary, let's set the line height of the text to 1.8, and let's set the color of the text to 023047, and we'll also set the opacity of the text to 0.9. Right now the next thing we need to have is we need to have this effect where the text just fades out at the bottom. So for that, we will use the after selector in CSS. So let's tap label post container, summary, : after. Now the after selectors are used to add additional data to your element. So here if I just tap content, and if I just tap 1, 2, 3, now we can see after this summary we have 1, 2, 3 displayed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to remove 1, 2, 3 from here, and we'll just leave the content blank, and we'll create a rectangle, and we will add a linear gradient color to that. Now we need to position this after selector relative to the summary. So here we need to type position relative, and here we need to type position absolute, and let's set the bottom position to 0, and let's set the left position to 0, and let's set the height of the element to 32 pixels, and we'll set the width of the element to 100%. And now let's add a background color, and let's set it to linear gradient. And the first color we need to have is transparent, and the next color we need to have is the white color. So now we can see that the text fades out at the bottom. Now let's go ahead and add a fixed height to this summary. So right now if you go back to the HTML and if we add some more text over here, and now if you go back to our design, here we can see that all the text is displayed over here. We just have the fade out for the last sentence. So what we will do is we will have a fixed height for this summary. So let's go back to the style.css file, and let's go to summary, and here let's type height, and let's set the height to, let's try 80 pixels, and we need to set the overflow to hidden so that anything outside 80 pixels is not being displayed. And now we can see everything looks alright. Let's also add some margin bottom. So let's type margin bottom, and let's set the margin bottom to 8 pixels. Let's see how it looks, and I think that looks alright. Now the next thing we need to style is this read more button. Let's target that. For that we have this anchor tag with the class of read more btn. So let's type label post container read more btn, and let's set the color of the text to 023047. Let's set the font weight to bold, and we'll set the font size to 13 pixels, and we'll set the text transform to uppercase, and we'll also remove the underline. So let's type text decoration and let's set it to none. I think we can have a different color, so let's change this to dark blue, and I think that looks alright. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to move this read more button to the right side. So for that, let's go ahead and select this container division, which is text content, and we'll set the display of this to flex, and let's set the flex direction to column. Now let's go back to the read more button, and here we need to type align self, and we need to set it to flex end, so this will move it to the right. And now we can see we have the read more button in the correct place. Let me just quickly go ahead and change these images. So for the second one, let's change this to block2.jpg, and for the third one, let's change this to block3.jpg, and this is how it looks. So our desktop version is complete. Now let's go ahead and style the mobile version. So let's decrease the width of the browser window, and let's add a media query. So here let's type @media, and let's set it to max width of 640 pixels. So whenever the screen width is less than 640 pixels, all the CSS in this block will be added to our design. So the first thing we need to do is we need to bring these two elements one below the other. We need to have the thumbnail at the top and the text content at the bottom. So here we can see we have the thumbnail at the top and the text content at the bottom. So let's go back, and here let's target the container division, which is this division with the class of label post. So let's type label post container label post, and let's set the flex direction to column. And now we can see that the thumbnail is at the top and the text content at the bottom. Now let's go ahead and set a height and width to this image. So let's target the image. Let's type label post container label post img, and let's set the width to 100%, and we'll also set a height of 200 pixels. And here the image still doesn't have 100% width, so we need to go to the container division of the image, and the container is basically an anchor tag. So we need to go to the selector of the anchor tag, and it is called thumb container. So here we need to type width, and we need to set it to 100%. And now we can see everything looks alright. Let's take a look at the desktop version. So the design is complete. Now in the next video, I'll show you how to add this design to your Blogger website, and we will display all the content of the blog posts inside this design. So that's basically it for this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below, And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.